Thank you for coming. Thank you, Madeleine, for introducing us. You might know that after the case of Donbass in Ukraine, many Western experts started discussing the question of risks of similar irredentism in Kazakhstan, in northern Kazakhstan in particular. Those parallels were driven mainly by similarities in population distribution of these two regions, eastern Ukraine and northern Kazakhstan. In particular, that is a big share of Russian ethnic population living in the territories that are very close to Russian borders. If we look at the map of distribution of ethnic Kazakhs in Kazakhstan, on this map you can see that in northern cities, Kazakhs are in minorities. For example, in Petropavlovsk, they constitute only 27%, and in Kostanay, for example, 37%. And there are also many other minor cities where Kazakhs' share is even lower. So that is a big, important issue for Kazakh government, and they made some efforts, some initiatives. So for my research, it was main question was to answer whether government's managed south to north migration policy was effective. Can it change the population distribution pattern in the northern Kazakhstan? Let's first start with initiatives by government. First, in 1994, capital of Kazakhstan was moved from southern Almaty to northern Astana, and later it changed the population distribution in this city. For example, in 1989, population of Astana was only a little more than 200,000 people, whereas in 2009 it grew 3 times, and it became more than 800,000 people. Then in 1997 there was a reform, administrative reform, that merged some oblasts. Here you can see colored territories. There were 5 oblasts that now disappeared. They merged with others. This allowed government to reshape the population distribution, so it would prevent the unfavorable voting from Russian population. For example, in 1989, population of Kostanay Oblast, Kazakh ethnic population of Kostanay Oblast was only 11%, and in northern Kazakhstan Oblast it was 12%. Then with merging all these oblasts, this a little bit changed. Then there was another initiative, managed distribution of ethnic repatriates. My colleague Barry Paul will later tell you more about this program of ethnic repatriation. This program had many incentives like quotas, housing credits, social benefits, employment assistance, which were conceived to channel all these repatriates to northern territories. But as you can see on this map, despite those incentives, most ethnic repatriates settled in the south. For example, 20% of them in Almaty Oblast, 20% of them in South Kazakhstan Oblast, and 11% in Mangistau Oblast, which is western southern part of Kazakhstan. So here you can see that all those incentives didn't work. In 2014, another program was started. It's called Serpent program. Its idea is to give education grants for youth of southern oblasts to study in the northern universities. In 3 years, 14,000 grants were given. And for example, on this map you can see distribution in 2015. You can see that major part of these grants went to northern parts of Kazakhstan. Now it's too early to assess the results because all those students are now studying there, but it's questionable whether they will stay there for a longer period after graduation. This is what government did to solve the problem. Now let's look at a real migration migration flows. In 2000, it was a very rapid growth of internal migration. You can see this on this graph that migration to Almaty and Astana city went very rapidly, and there are some numbers that can show how serious it was. For example, in 1989, population of Astana was only 281, and then in 20 years it grew to 863,000. And according to census of 2009, 53% of population of Astana was settled there in last 10 years, so since 1999. And in Almaty city, the same story. Almaty is the largest urban area. It grew from 1 million in 1989 to 1.7 million in 2015. And according to the census, 29% of population migrated to the city during the period of 1999 and 2009. So in terms of destinations, this rapid growth of internal migration is driven almost exclusively by these two major cities. In terms of people who migrate, here on this graph you can see that all this growth was mostly driven by ethnic Kazakhs. You can see the lower line, green line, that is the dynamics of migration of ethnic Russians. It just didn't change. So, but whole dynamics is changing, and it's changing with the migration of ethnic Kazakhs. We can only also compare these two ethnic groups. How do they migrate within the country? And here you can see that that Russians used to prefer to move abroad. So for them, international migration is more important. They realize their migration potential through international migration. Whereas for ethnic Kazakhs, it is different. It is mostly internal migration within regions, within oblasts, and across borders of oblasts. So there are strong differences between these two ethnic groups. And so there are differences also between the regions. Here you can see the very vivid examples of two oblasts, Kostanay Oblast, which is northern part of Kazakhstan, and South Kazakhstan Oblast. This dynamics is a dynamic of regionalist migration within the borders of oblasts. So in Kostanay, you can see that people steadily move from rural areas to urban areas, whereas in the south, it's not so clear. Sometimes movement from urban areas towards rural ones is stronger. And here you can see the interregional migration across the oblast borders. And here you can see that in the north, it's not so important. So people prefer to stay within the oblast borders, whereas in south, they prefer to move across the borders of oblasts. So mostly they move to Astana and Almaty city. So these are very strong differences between two regions. In general, how does it look like? 69% of migrants from the north move within the borders of macro northern region. On this graph, you can see that this blue, colored in blue, they all will remain in the north. And the same for the south. 68% of migrants from the south move within the southern oblasts, and you can see the same in the west. So it means that a very strong regionalism effect can be seen there in migration in Kazakhstan. In absolute numbers, it's also very interesting because even those who migrate towards north, they distribute not evenly. The farthest northern oblasts, Kostanay, North Kazakhstan, and Pavlodar Oblast, those that have boundaries with Russian Federation, they receive only small amounts of immigrants immigrants, internal migrants from south. For example, in 16 years, from 1999 to 2015, only 1,500 people from Zhangul Oblast and only 400 people from Kazakh Oblast moved to Kostanay Oblast. So it's really small numbers, 400 and 1,500 in 16 years, very small numbers. So it means that this migration cannot change the distribution pattern there in the north. So in conclusion, there are four major things that I wanted to say. First, there is strong regionalism in migration patterns. Demographic, economic, and cultural differences between the regions are crucial, and they shape the migration patterns. Second, the farthest northern territories do not attract migrants from the south at all. Astana remains the only northern city where people from the south want to migrate to. And fourth, long-term policy implications of depopulation of northern Oblast still unknown. As I told you before, there are some very effective flow from rural areas towards urban areas in the north, and it remains that rural population is going to disappear in northern parts. Sorry. And some recommendations. As you can see, managed migration cannot solve the problem of the Northern Oblast. So negative effects of regionalism need to be smoothed out. This regionalism has a tendency to grow. So with years, it might be even stronger between the north and south, for example. And second is only jobs can make the Northern Oblast attractive for migrants. So it's just some incentives didn't work as you saw. That's it. Thank you very much.